Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the Captain's Review of Halloween Horror Nights 32. Now, if you're just joining me, I would recommend going and watching part 1 of my review. It's you'll find the link in the description below, and it kind of goes over my first experiences with the event and explains some of my opinions of my second night at the event. For those of you who already watched it, hey, welcome. Let's just jump right in. So this is night 2 of my experience at Halloween Horror Nights 32 in Orlando, Florida. Now, one thing I could say about this night was very average. And I recommend it. If you are going to go to Halloween Horror Nights, I feel this is the best type of night you can have. I managed to get to 4 houses, watch the show, enjoy some of the scare zones, and check out the shops. It was a very casual, non-rushing night, and I really enjoyed it for that experience. And one of the reasons that happened for me was I decided to eat before I went to the park. Now, every year, I always eat dinner at the park. I always grab dinner at the Monsters Cafe, sometimes at a few other restaurants, but I always make a note to go to the Monsters Cafe. With that cafe gone, it just doesn't feel like I necessarily have to do it, because that cafe always made it feel like it was part of the event. I am eating dinner, surrounded by these classic Universal monsters. It's all a part of the experience of Halloween Horror Nights. And yeah, I'm still sad that that restaurant is gone, but eating beforehand was a good move. I decided to grab some dinner actually at Disney Springs, and I arrived at the park a little after 7 p.m. So it had already been open for about half an hour or two, and I just really liked... It's hard to explain, but like, going in on a full stomach, you don't feel like you have to start thinking about dinner. You don't feel like you have to start planning ahead for that kind of stuff. You could just kind of enjoy the experience of the park and snack when you want to snack. And I liked it so much more. And you know what? That's where I'll jump in with the food. So, as I'm going throughout the park, I saw the Chucky booth. And one item got my interest, and it was, I'm afraid I don't remember the name of it exactly, but it was this Nashville hot chicken tenders they had. And they're served in like a popcorn box with, I guess, like onions and some sort of drizzle on top of it, a sauce. It looked good, so I decided to order it. And it was mid. I mean, it was definitely okay, but I've had way better Nashville hot elsewhere. I mean, heck, KFC's Nashville hot was a heck of a lot better. And it was okay, but it was fine. I wasn't starving. I was just a little hungry, and it was pretty good. I mean, it's chicken. It's spicy chicken. It's really hard to screw that up. But what did screw me up was it's a bit of a lie. You see, on the photo, they show you this popcorn box full of chicken. What they give you is a popcorn box half full of chicken. Because the paper that's stuffed in there, the lining of the popcorn box, only goes halfway down into the box. So yeah, you only get maybe like 6 or 7 pieces of chicken in a box that looks like it's full of about 12. Yeah, little pissed off there, but hey, that's what you get when you go to these places. You get that kind of stuff. What I wasn't expecting though was the dessert I decided to have right afterwards. Under a suggestion of a review I read, I tried Yuri's Favorites at the Stranger Things booth. That thing was fucking amazing. Oh my god. It's a peanut butter mousse chocolate cake sprinkled with Reese's Pieces in this little jar. And that mousse and that cake was amazing. Oh my god. I mean, look, if it's peanut butter, you got me. You already won me over. But it was such damn good mousse. I loved this goddamn treat. Hell, I loved it so much, I bought 2 more as I was leaving the park, because I keep a little cooler in my car, and I decided I was going to enjoy these a few days later. Only thing I would say, didn't need the Reese's Pieces. I thought it was better without them. If they could do this thing again, maybe a little bit bigger with just the mousse and the cake, I will buy that every time I'm at the bar. Bring that back, put that in there every goddamn day. Not just for Halloween Horror Nights, just make that a regular thing. It was so good. Oh my god, so damn good. So, after that, later on in the night, I was getting hungry again. And I thought, you know what? I've been holding it off, but I really want to grab one. I wanted the ravioli. So, there is a Last of Us food booth, which is cleverly placed in the alleyway section of the New York portion of the park. It's that famous alleyway, you know, if you're one of those 90s kids and you remember the Roundhouse, it's where they shot the footage for the opening. They use that area all the time for commercials and stuff, but this is like this really nice little alleyway. And they cordoned it off into like this mini restaurant for The Last of Us. Really well themed. Everything's got like Fedra signage and chain link fences with the fireflies all over it. If you're a fan of The Last of Us video game, you'll really enjoy it. But the key part of the booth is they serve this ravioli in a collectible tin can. And it's got like Fedra ration on it and stuff like that. Really cool looking. And, you know, going up to it, I was pretty apprehensive because I was thinking, ravioli? Really? Is it going to be good? It's cheese ravioli, too. It's not like meat-filled. It's just regular cheese ravioli. But it looked interesting enough, and I was willing to give it a shot. I mean, hell, I enjoy some good Chef Boyardee. Let's do it. Go up to the booth. Check the price. $8.99. Okay, you know what? That ain't bad. $8.99 for some decent ravioli and a collectible can. I'll do it. That's honestly not a bad price. I was actually a little surprised. I was expecting it to be a bit more expensive. Go up there, notice that there's not really much of a line. That should have been a red flag for me, and this is why. So, I go up, and I'm like, hey, can I get this ravioli? And they're like, yeah, you should know, though, we're out of the can. You're out of the can? We're out of the can. They're out of the can. I'm pretty heartbroken. I don't really care too much about the can because I'm hungry, but I kind of went there specifically for the can. And I ask her, you know, are you going to be bringing the can back? And they're literally like, no, the can will not be returning. It's the beginning of October. I'm there October 1st. You're already out of the damn can? What happened, Universal? What happened? Ugh, I'm almost afraid to look on eBay, but I'm imagining those cans are all over eBay right now. But again, no big deal. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Oh well. I take a moment to think, do I want to maybe go grab something else? Maybe grab one of them cordyceps corn dogs I saw? No. I look at her and I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Let me do the ravioli. So she rings me up for the ravioli. And I'm like, get ready to pay, and then I notice something. It's $9.99. And I'm thinking, oh, she must have rang me up for something different. And I look at her and say, no, I just wanted the $8.99 ravioli. And she's all like, I know. And I'm like, well, it's ringing up $9.99. And she's like, well, that's how much it is. And I look at the sign, because there's a sign right there at the register. I was like, it says $8.99 on the sign. She doesn't believe me at first. And I'm like, have people just been ordering this without checking the price? And I could see that. I could totally see that. So she steps out from behind the booth, checks it, and she's like, well, what do you know? It does say $8.99. And I'm like, I mean, I assume it's $8.99 because maybe they dropped it $1 because the can's not available anymore. I don't know. But I'm not making a big deal. I really want to stress I'm not making a big deal about it because I don't want to be a Karen at one of these parks. I'm like, hey, it's cool. Don't worry. And she's like, no, hold on. Now she can't change the price. So she's got to get someone to change the price for her, which I'm like, what the heck? Why don't they let you change the price? That's what I'm thinking. I'm just standing there. I'm like, no, it's cool. I don't care. But thankfully, I guess her like supervisor or whoever was right around the corner. So she comes walking over and she like looks at the sign and she's like, holy crap, it does say $8.99. So she starts to try and adjust the price. She can't adjust the price. And I'm just like, it's you know what? Don't worry about it. It's not a bait. But even she's like insistent. I'm like, no. It says $8.99. Let's make this happen. And I'm just thinking, how long is this going to take? I don't care that much. I don't really care that much. But they're really being nice about it. They are so sweet about the whole thing. I guess her supervisor also walks right around the corner. I don't know. I guess they were all just in the area. And he comes up and he's looking at the register. They can't figure it out. They can't figure out how to discount it $1. So she straight up just comps me. She just hands me the receipt and says, hey, don't worry about it. So they just gave me the ravioli for free. I was speechless, like so damn nice. I was willing to pay, but they were like, don't worry about it. Just enjoy. So yeah, that was quite a little bit of an experience. I go into the restaurant area. They got the ravioli. It's in like a paper boat, but it's got this little Fedra, like slid in between two of the paper boats. It's like a cute little thing. I sit down, I eat. Pretty good ravioli. It's pretty good. It's pretty tasty. And a pretty good portion too. If you are like hungry and want something different than the usual pizza, hot dog, burger, fries thing, ravioli was rather filling. I actually was like, wow, this is a lot of food. I was not hungry the rest of the night after that. That was for sure. I was pretty disappointed about the can, but you know what? Again, didn't make a big deal about it. It's no big deal. It just, hey, it was still good food, and it was a fun story. It was a fun little experience, you know? And speaking of experiences, let's get to the main menu here. The houses. In a bit. So, here's what we're going to talk about first. I mentioned I'd hit up 4 houses and a show. What about the show? Let's talk about the show. Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream. So you know what's interesting? Every year, that show is called Nightmare Fuel. And I realized why when I went to it that night. It's the same show. It's the same show. There are slight changes to the show, with maybe a different costume, maybe a different magic trick, but for the most part, it's still the same show. It's a series of rather attractive people dancing in very, very revealing outfits to a variety of music, pyrotechnics, explosions, and magic tricks. It's quite enjoyable. It's like the Cirque du Soleil of like goth people. But it's a fine show. It really is. But I'm spoiled because I've gotten to enjoy Bill and Ted every year for like the last decade. And the Bill and Ted shows had all of that with a lot more humor and were different every single time. Every Bill and Ted show was different than the last one. And man, I miss the Bill and Ted shows. Man, I miss those. God, I wish they would bring them back. Because Nightmare Fuel is a fine show, but once you've seen it once, you kind of get the whole experience. And when I sat down and watched this, I realized it was the same show. Now, last year I missed theirs, but last year's was also called Nightmare Fuel, so I'm going to assume it was the same, but with slight differences. One difference I noticed this year, and it's probably a coincidence, but I feel like somebody who was designing the costume for this definitely played Resident Evil Village. Because at one point during the show, a group of women dressed in long black dresses with wide brim black hats walked out onto the stage, revealing clawed hands. Very Lady Dimitrescu, I'm just going to say that. Very, very reminiscent of that character from the show. And it fit. It was nice. It was great. So, yeah, if you've been to Nightmare Fuel in past Halloween Horror Nights, consider your timing. If you really want to hit up more houses and you can save some time by avoiding that show, avoid the show. Because you've already experienced it. Put that time into another house. I probably could have gotten 5 houses in if I had skipped that show. All right, so the big thing. Just going to get it out there. I did miss the scare zone that I had mentioned in the last podcast that I wanted to go see, the Dark Zodiac. It's located in the Hollywood section of the park, but it's a bit off the beaten path. You kind of have to want to go that way in order to experience it. And I'll probably hit it up next time. But other than that, I really just kind of enjoyed the park as it was before. You know, I checked out the tribute store real quick. I enjoyed the food, walked through all the scare zones. Really good experience. And yet, despite all of that I still got to hit up 4 houses. And the first house I went to, wow, what can I say about this house? Okay, so the house is called Blood Moon Dark Offerings. And even though I still have 3 houses left to go, I think I'm calling it. Blood Moon Dark Offerings is the best house at Halloween Horror Nights. Yeah, I loved this house. I even have the description of it right here. Colonial-era villagers begin to worship the moon, hunting down any non-followers. Try not to become part of their grisly offering. So yeah, when you entered into the house, it had this, you're basically entering this village with all these wonderfully built houses. And when I say you're entering a village, it really feels like you're entering a village. They had this really nice effect where you saw a blood red moon up in the sky as you first entered the house. It was well done. I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I thought, damn, that looks great. And as you weave your way through the alleyways and the houses of this colonial village, everything's got this red tint to it, just so that the whole village is bathed in this blood red moonlight. And the way the village was designed, it made it even feel more realistic because as you weaved through each alleyway, they lined up the alleyways so that you could see this bell tower in the center of the village. And there was actually someone up there ringing the bell, looking down upon you. I caught sight of it every so often as I made my way through this haunted house. It was so well done. And best of all, I think the fact that the people there were just people. The scare actors were all dressed up as just these colonial people with blood on their bodies and cuts along their hands and faces. They honestly looked more scary because they were just regular people driven mad by this cult. And just as you went through it and you came across more and more death and sacrifices, it was just so well done. Especially this center area where you came across 3 children, wrapping guts around a maypole. It was so gory. It was wonderful. Now, unfortunately, the kids were just static puppets. They weren't moving or anything, but it still looked great. I loved this house. Maybe a little too much, because the scare actors didn't even bother. I was way too happy. I was smiling way too much. I was enjoying myself far more than I think they expected some guy to. because nobody tried scaring me at this house. They were all just like, yeah, no, let him go. Let him go. Let him go. And at one point, I actually had to stop and move to the side because this one couple behind me, the woman was screaming so loudly, so very much that my ears really started to hurt. I could take screams, but man, it got really bad. I had to just be like, okay, just go. So then I could go back to smiling like an idiot, looking at all the details and effects. So yeah, if you want, so hey, there you go. There's a great thing. She was screaming her head off. So if you're looking for a really goddamn good scary house, check out Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Especially compared to the next house. So yeah, franchise houses, you know how I feel about them, and this kind of cements my opinion of them. The Exorcist Believer. Because boy, believe you me, it was not a good house. Man. So I guess this house is based off of a movie that hasn't even been released yet, or at the time this video goes up, might be already out, but yeah, it's a house you can't even experience the movie first. So everyone going into this house doesn't know the source material, except for like the original movies. I've seen the very first two Exorcist movies. And going through it, it felt like at first they were making a house based on The Exorcist, but then it just got boring. It just got really boring because we're just going through a house. There is one scene where we're out in like a forest area and you can hear people like moving flashlights around calling for the girl, which apparently now I found out that like, no, there's two girls. See, that's how you make a sequel to The Exorcist. You had one girl who was possessed by a devil. Well, now you got two. Boom. What the hell? So yeah, it just wasn't that good. I didn't really hear many people screaming. There were some good effects. Like there was this one part of the house where like this girl was held up to the ceiling by her own puke. Like, you know, just all this black bile was coming out of her mouth and she was hanging from the ceiling. I mean, it wasn't a real girl. It was, you know, a static figurine, but you know, it still looked cool. We walked around it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. But, you know, I even took notes at that house. I even recorded like a review right afterwards. I didn't really remember much of the house even after I was done with it. You're just going through houses and just a girl pops out at you every so often. It wasn't, you know what? Actually, there was one thing I noticed. When I was going through the house, there was this like short older lady like yelling at you and everything. And all I could think of is like, wait a minute, isn't that from the Poltergeist? It really felt like, isn't this character from Poltergeist? I don't know. The whole house was just a disappointment. Frankly, I think it's the worst house I've been to so far this event. So yeah, avoid The Exorcist Believer. You are not missing out. You are not missing out at all. One thing you don't want to miss out on, though, is The Darkest Deal. Let's see, house's description is blues musician Pine Straw Spruce meets at a crossroads with a diabolical entity known as the Collector to make a deal. His soul for fame. Yeah, it's that classic story. Devil went down to Georgia looking for a soul to steal, and he got one. And yeah, again, another OG house, and it was awesome. Oh man, was it awesome. You're following the storyline of this blues singer, this guy who's down on his luck, and he becomes an amazing musician. And you're kind of following his rise to fame. You see him playing in clubs and people being demons. You can tell that something bad is going on. His audience is dying, but he keeps getting more and more popular, more and more famous as you go throughout the houses. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the scare actors were wearing kind of comically silly looking devil outfits, but it overall felt fitting with the source material. it worked. I will just say it worked. And they did some really good effects with the blues singer too. Like his shadow would be moving on its own behind him as he played music and stuff like that. And later on in the house, you actually came across the part where the so-called collector collects the guy's soul. And the scare actor was wearing like this glowing chest piece. So like as the collector reached out, his like chest started glowing blue and he got pulled back onto the stage. It was a really nice effect, leading up to some extremely well done theming, because you eventually you just go to hell. You just go to hell. You go to hell and you actually see. It was so good. So the walls of hell are just lined up with faces, and you actually see the blues singer like imprinted into the walls of hell with his guitar, and it's quite gruesome. It's just well done. It's a silly house, but a joy to walk through. Darkest Deal was recommended to me by someone, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't even need a recommendation. I always hit up all the OG houses, and this one was definitely one not to miss. I actually have to say it's my third favorite house so far. Yeah, Blood Moon Dark Offerings, followed by Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Faith, then you know what? Maybe, no, I'll put Darkest Deal at third. I think my love of the Dueling Dragons roller coaster kind of puts it a little bit above Darkest Deal. But I mentioned I did 4 houses, and yeah, I still hit up one more. At the end of the night, I went to see Chucky in Chucky's Ultimate Kill Count. You know, when it comes to these franchised houses, I've never really been a fan, but sometimes they do surprise me. Sometimes they do a pretty good job. I remember a Silent Hill house one time, and I thought even if you hadn't played the games, the house was still really well done. And Chucky's was creative. It was the best I could describe it is meta. So here's how the house works. Universal Studios built a haunted house about Chucky, and then invited Chucky to come check out the house. He hates the house, then proceeds to start killing everybody in the house. So that's how it works. You are going through this haunted house themed after Chucky, and it kind of goes through a lot of the scenes from the Child's Play and Chucky movies. But while you're doing that, scare actors are actually being killed by Chucky. And it's very creative. You know, how can you make a house about Chucky? He's just a small toy. But having the scare actors fighting against Chucky, like bursting out of a wall or a doorway, screaming as they are fighting off a doll on their face or stabbing in the back, is probably the most creative thing they could think of to do. Which is why I was very disappointed halfway. Because like I said, you're going through the Chucky house, and you actually come to a part where it really makes you think you're at the end of the house. It's got an exit sign, an area that really feels like, hey, this is the end of the house. Thanks for joining us. Get the hell out. And there's even a scare actor there telling you like, no, you can't go on ahead. Chucky's in there and he's killing everybody. And I'm thinking like, oh, what's going to be up next? And it's just more generic house. What I mean by that is like, I don't even really remember the setting of the second part of the house, because like we're in a Christmas themed house, and then we're in like just, I don't even really remember too well. It was very forgettable. But I thought like, I'll be honest with you, I think I set myself up for disappointment, because as we're going through the exit, I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing here. I'm thinking the second half is going to be like, oh, now we're going to enter the offices. Like we're going into the actual offices of Universal. We'll see like cubicles and hallways and like maybe the planning room where the actual house was planned and Chucky's just killing everyone. That's what I was expecting. I was expecting more of the meta narrative. But, you know, we didn't do that. We just went into more houses, and I don't know. It just felt like, well, why did they build more of this here if that was supposed to be the actual exit to the house? You know what I'm saying? Like it could have been something else. Like maybe they could have been like, oh no, this was supposed to be a different haunted house based off of, I don't know. They could have just come up with something. They could have been like, they could have taken a house from the old Halloween Horror Nights, shrunk it down, and put it as the second half. Been like, oh no, now you're in, I don't know, I'm just trying to randomly grab a house from previous that you could have just done a Universal Studios house. You could be like, oh, you're in Frankenstein's castle. Oh no, it's Chucky. He's stabbing the dude playing Frankenstein. Oh my God. But they didn't do that. So really, the first half of that house was fantastic. I loved it. Second house just wasn't as good. It kind of ruined the experience for me. So yeah, there you go. Those were the 4 houses I managed to get. And yeah, I gotta say, I had a really good time. Fantastic experience. And at this point, I only have 3 houses left. Let's see, what I've got here is The Last of Us, Stranger Things, and the Dr. Oddfellows Twisted Origins. Yeah, I'm not really in a rush to do Stranger Things because I haven't seen the show since season 1, and I just don't care for it that much. I'm still going to do these because, I still have, hey, I gotta review all of them, right? And yeah, I'm going to hopefully get that done sometime later this month. But hey, that's my review. If you guys want to know anything, if you guys have questions about, anything at the parks, just send me a message. Hit me up here or Twitter, just let me know. Just be like, hey, can you go do this or do that? And I'll be happy to talk about it. This was a unique experience for me. I hope you guys have been enjoying the more podcast-like approach to this, and that's all I've got to say. So thank you again, and I will see you for night 3.